We're here today with Jihad Abdul-Jami, leader of the It's Okay to Suck campaign and founder of BreakTheCycle.net. What do you think about how hip hop is portrayed in the media?
What do I think about how hip hop is portrayed in the media? Um, well, I think it's fairly accurate. You know what I mean? I think what you see is pretty much what you get. I don't think they're doctoring the footage or whatever. So I think that what they show you is pretty much how it is. What I think they don't do is give you the full picture. Hip hop is vast. There's a lot of different artists that represent a lot of different things. But for the most part, in the media, you're not really gonna get hip hop in the media anyway, unless it's some entertainment channel or something like that. Other than that, you only going to hear hip hop unless it's associated with something negative, like if someone does some crazy crime and he claims to be listening to some rap album before he did it, or something like that, or if something happened, if there's a gang shooting or whatever, and you want to link it back to hip hop, something like that. So of course, in that sense, I think hip hop is portrayed in a negative light because hip hop is not just about that. Is it partially about that? Of course. A lot of people would like to deny that, because they're in the hip hop industry, or they are, such fans of it that they live in some bubble, I guess, because there is a lot of violent hip hop out there. There's a lot of negativity that is glorified in hip hop. A lot of bragging about drugs being sold, murders being committed, women being prostituted. So that happens. But you also have rappers that talk about serving God, rappers that talk about protecting their communities, rappers that talk about being married and being family men, and justice, and so there's hip hop is so multifaceted that you rarely get the full picture of it. So I don't think the media shows enough of hip hop. But as far as what they do show is accurate, but the context in which they show it, that I don't agree with.
What is your opinion of hip hop?
In my opinion, hip hop is good and bad. I would start with the positive is the fact that hip hop is taking people from the corners, selling drugs, to going around the world doing tours. People that used to do stick ups are now businessmen. People that used to live in poverty and who today probably would be unemployed and wouldn't have work, are now very comfortable, very successful, have been able to send their children to college, because you gotta understand, hip hop is over 30 years old now. So, a lot of people, a lot of families have, been able to eat from hip hop, and so it's definitely been a good thing. A lot of convicted felons who definitely wouldn't find any work today are able to operate in the hip hop industry and become very wealthy. Where if it wasn't for hip hop, society would definitely not have let these people in. They would not have been a part, of the process. And now they're able to have influence and power in media and in different parts of the world and business. So I definitely think hip hop has definitely, it must be credited with that. On the negative, a lot of people, and I won't say it's hip hop, I think it's a misuse of hip hop. People have, stopped dreaming. They've stopped reaching, stopped striving for change, because a lot of rappers that are successful, if you listen to that history, they come from the streets, they come from drug dealing, they come from robberies and these type of things. So what you have is youth that are still in these neighborhoods similar to where these rappers come from, and they're comfortable being on the block, selling drugs or doing stick-ups, because they believe that that's going to be their way out. Music is going to be their way out. And a lot of artists aren't really giving explanations, as to, number one, some of it's entertainment. Some of these stories never happened. They didn't really do the things they talk about. If they did do it, then they don't really reach out and let the kids know that, look, you don't have to do that, you shouldn't do that, hey, I was wrong for doing that. And if you do say it, it's not going to be believable. You can't tell me I was wrong for selling drugs and you shouldn't do it, and your next album you brag about how much dope you sold and how you the trap star of the decade. I mean, that doesn't work. You know what I mean? It's either or. So I think in that sense it's had a negative impact. Um, and so I mean, my opinion of hip hop is good and bad. Pros and cons, but life is filled with pros and cons.
Do you think rap is responsible for a lot of the violence in urban communities? Or do you think rap has been used as a scapegoat?
Well, I definitely don't think rap is responsible for the violence in the communities because, it's rap, it's music. Music don't pull triggers, people pull triggers. You know what I mean? So it's not the music. Does the music play a part? Of course. In certain communities it does. Some communities it does not. But for the most part, I think it does play a part in a lot of, especially urban African American communities, because it sets the scene. And that's what it's all about, setting the scene. If you are, someone that's out there selling drugs, and you are listening to a rapper that's talking about selling drugs and what he does to protect his drugs and protect his turf, and that's what you're listening to, then 9 times out of 10, you're going to be influenced by that. You can say you're not. I have my own mind, but you can't help but be influenced. We all suffer from that. You know what I mean? You can listen to a song on a commercial, and 2 hours later you find yourself humming that song. Like, where'd that come from? It done got into your head. You didn't even plan it. So we are all influenced by music because it's such a powerful force. So definitely, if you listen to, a lot of violence and dope dealing, and you're in that kind of environment, it's going to influence you. It's going to affect you. And if you're going to, do a drive-by, or you're going to shoot your enemy, I don't think if you're listening to Kirk Franklin, you're going to be as amped up to do it as if you listen to a rap artist that's talking about that. So I think music plays a part, just as in a lot of R&B artists plays a part in fornication. A lot of people have sex, based upon the music that's being played. You know what I mean? If you take a young lady home and you throw on some gospel music and try to have sex with her, I mean, you may still get it, you know what I mean? But the chances are going to be better if you throw on some I don't know, Luther or some Teddy Pendergrass or some Joe or Avant, something like that. So I mean, music sets the scene. So is rap responsible for the violence in the communities? No. Does it play a part? Does it influence those individuals that commit these crimes? Without a doubt, it does.
Do you think there needs to be a hip-hop reform?
Yeah, definitely needs to be a hip-hop reform. Because if we have reform in hip-hop, then we will have reform within the communities, reform within the people that are supporters of hip-hop. Because hip-hop is influential. That's why you have McDonald's and, these different car manufacturers, or cereal companies, whatever. It's all across the board. People are using hip hop to sell their products, and why would they use it if it wasn't influential? So if you have that power, you have that influence, and you reform it, then of course you're going to cause reform to happen within the lives of the people that enjoy the music, the people that like the music. So I definitely think hip hop reform is needed. It would be good. I think if we could have more individuals that would spend less upon themselves and maybe set back so much every year or every month or whatever, and put it into a mutual fund and distribute it, throughout the country and throughout the world, to the motherland, which is Africa, of course, where most of us originate from as African Americans, if not all people. But I'm not going to get too deep into that, the origin of man. But definitely, we know as African Americans, most of us definitely come from there due to the slave trade. So I think that if we can do that and educate the kids more, let them know that there's a difference between entertainment and reality, and let them know that maybe you didn't do some of those things you're rapping about, and if you did do it, let them know that you regret doing it, or if you don't regret doing it, you suggest that they do it another way. So yeah, I think definitely we need reform, but reform comes from within. The individual must reform. And so once they reform, then the music and everything that they touch can be reformed. But is it needed? Yes.
How has hip-hop and television changed in the last 20 years?
Well, I think hip-hop and television has greatly changed in the past 20 years. 20 years ago, you had groups like Public Enemy that could, sell out shows right here, in the United States, of course. Sell millions of records without a problem. Because at that time, righteousness was cool. It was no problem to make music like that. And then you could still have gangster music. You could still have an NWA song, talking about shooting and killing cops and prostitutes or whatever. right along with, someone like Public Enemy talking about Black Power. Everyone could eat back then. Now, no one's willing to market righteous music. That's not something that you're really hearing now. Are these artists still out there? Of course they're out there. You have conscious artists. You have rappers that are speaking that which needs to be spoke, but they're not being marketed. They're not being promoted. They're not being signed by these major companies. So, definitely rap music has definitely changed in the past 20 years. And in that sense, being one of them. And the same with television. 20 years ago, a lot of the nudity that you see now on television, you wouldn't see it. A lot of the graphic violence, a lot of the words that are being used, same-sex behavior, a lot of these things 20 years ago, which is 1990, you wouldn't have seen those things. So I think we've gone from being creative as people, and we're become geared towards sensuality. So now everything is all about sex. It could be a commercial about a shampoo, something just to clean your hair, and the woman is moaning and groaning like she's having an orgasm. I mean, everything is to appeal to your senses and not to your mind anymore. So it's definitely been a great change over the past 20 years.
What do you think about shows like The First 48, which show actual murders?
Well, I think shows like The First 48, which happens to be one of my favorite shows, are needed. Because what it does is it takes the blinders off. It takes away all the, facades and everything that you may see in a movie or hear in a song, and it gives you the real, or what really happens when you choose a criminal lifestyle. Because you have people that talk about, selling drugs, and then you see the aftermath of that, in music. You look at someone like Jay-Z, that there's no secret. He lets you know, yeah, he sold drugs in his past. Now, this man is very, very wealthy, but those people are very few. There's very few Jay-Z's that makes it out of the environment. Most people that come from where he come from, that live the way he lived, are in federal prisons, are dead, are stuck in the struggle. So that rarely happens. The First 48 gives you the clear picture. You see these drug dealers getting killed doing drug deals, or you see these guys out here trying to get that fast money. Now they doing life. You know what I mean? So it gives it to you real, and so I think it's a good educational tool for kids that, maybe thinking about getting out there and chasing the glitz and the glamour and thinking that it's all good. You really see it for what it is. You know what I mean? When you see these individuals that are, dead, and sometimes they aren't found for days, and, maggots are crawling out of their eyes, and, body rotten. I mean, ain't nothing glamorous about that. There's nothing glitz. There's nothing gangster about that. That's real. That's raw. Mama's screaming, crying. That's some real right there. So I think shows like that, I love them, and they need to continue to show the real of what it's really like in the streets.
What improvements would you like to see on TV as a Muslim?
As a Muslim, I like to see more Muslim-oriented shows. I like to see a strong Muslim family on television. I think we need to have more Muslim writers, directors, Islamic news, because a lot of times you don't hear nothing about Islam unless it's something negative. Someone that blew up a bus, or there's an attempt to blow up a building, and it's so-called Muslims saying that they did it. So I think that we need to have more of a positive light to be shown, and let them know that we have fun too. We like to party, we like to have fun, we make love, we laugh. We're not just praying and plotting on how to take over the country. That's not us. So I would love to see Muslims put in a more positive light on television.
Okay, well, we'd like to thank you for doing this interview with us again.
Hey, pleasure's all mine anytime, and I definitely look forward to doing it again.